Hi again. I wanted to talk a little bit today about what it means to be a bounty hunter. A lot of people have some preconceived notions about it from what they've seen on TV, what they've heard from their friends, or, just the idea that it's this big, flashy job that makes a ton of money and there's a lot of fun and you get to go out and carry shotguns and rifles and kick in doors and rough people up. And in reality, that's not how it is at all. 90% of bounty hunting work, number one, it's by contract. We're not law enforcement. We're not involved with any police or federal agencies whatsoever. Um, we, from time to time, do utilize police agencies to get information or share information, but that's very rare. 9 times out of 10, the police don't want to have anything to do with a bondsman because of liability issues or because they might not like us. Whatever the reason is, we're usually out there on our own. We don't have the availability of backup. We don't have the availability of calling 911. You know, Obviously, if something goes down that's extreme, like somebody gets shot or somebody does something and gets themselves hurt, then they'll get involved. But that's not a good thing. Usually, it's the bondsman that winds up on the losing end of that. But people have this idea that we're out there chasing these $1 million, $2 million bonds and making hundreds of $1,000s a year, and that's just not the case. Your average bond in my area, anyway, is anywhere between $1,500 and $10,000. So, as a bounty hunter, if I'm out chasing somebody for a $1,500 bond, I make 150 bucks. Well, I probably spent 100 of that in fuel and in skip tracing websites and different things like that. So you got two or three guys, because you never want to go on your own. Uh, you're going to split 50 bucks between three guys. There's no money in that. Well, there are high dollar bonds out there, but I can tell you that it's normally the veterans that get those high dollar bonds, guys that have been in the business 10, 20, 30 years, and they're very few and far between, because normally the higher the bond is, the more severe an offense is, and we're not the only ones looking for them. They're going to get pulled over somewhere out of state. The U.S. Marshals are going to be looking for them. The FBI might be looking for them. There's just so many variables that it's it's usually unheard of for a bounty hunter to chase somebody that's worth $1 million, because the bonding company is not going to want to pay somebody 100 grand to go find somebody that's probably going to get caught by the authorities anyway. Number two, bounty hunting's not all about kicking in doors and pulling people out of their houses at gunpoint. That's dangerous. It's unprofessional, and normally other people get hurt in the process. I'll give you a for instance. We're chasing a guy on a $5,000 bond. We go to a house. We think he's in the house. So we go ahead and kick in the door. We put everybody down on the floor. We're pointing guns at everybody because this is a felony. So there's probably kids in the house. Might be an elderly couple in the house. You never know what's on the other side of that door. There might be somebody that's got nothing to do with the bond that you're actually chasing. They think their home is getting broken into, so they shoot at you, you shoot back. Well, assuming that you don't get shot and you shoot this guy that's trying to protect his house, what you've done there is murder, breaking and entering, and murder. You haven't accomplished anything but going to jail yourself for trying to be a cowboy. Well, that and that's the misconception, that that's what bounty hunters do, and it's not. Bounty hunters, fugitive recovery agents, bail enforcement agents, whatever you call yourselves, have to be professional, have to be on their A game, have to think with their head, not their ego. You know, we approach a house, we knock on the door, we treat the people like civilized human beings, and 9 times out of 10, we get more information and results out of treating people decent than we do out of trying to play hardball with them. You know, you do have your guys out there that they like to play hardball all the time. And, you know, maybe that works for them sometimes, but I can tell you out of experience, most of the time that doesn't work. You treat somebody like they're a man or a woman and not like a dog, then you're going to get better results out of that conversation. And usually when you kick in a door, you're kicking in a door to somebody else's house. So the guy that you're looking for, even if he is there, most of the time would have opened the door if you'd have knocked to begin with. And secondly, they're going to jail. They're not paying for the damage to that property. They're not having to replace that door. And they're not having to deal with the emotional effects of a bunch of guys storming into their house in the middle of the night when you could have just knocked on the door to begin with. So let's talk a little bit about the money in it. A lot of times when you are a freelance bounty hunter, which is now against the law in most states anyway, but say you go to 3 or 4 different bonding companies and you get a bunch of files and you start looking for these people. One, they're only giving you the file because they've already exhausted all their resources looking for the guy. 2, they're not going to give you easy money, as people call it. They're not going to give you a $100,000 skip and pay you $10,000 to go knock on one door and then take them to jail. Don't get me wrong, it does happen sometimes, but like I said, it's very, very few and far between. So most of the time you're getting misdemeanors worth $200 or less. You're getting felonies that have fled to other states that it'll cost you more to go to that state and get them than what you're going to make to begin with. There are some bonding companies that'll pay you your 10% plus expenses, but they're not going to pay expenses in excess of the bond itself. It doesn't make sense. You know, for instance, one time I had somebody jump to Las Vegas from here. Well, her bond was only $1,500. It would have cost me $3,000 or $4,000 to go over there and get her and come back. So it wasn't worth it to me. So I just paid the bond off, you know. Well, so you think you want to be a bounty hunter, you really got to do your research. You got to be licensed in the state that you're doing business in. You got to know the ins and outs of the business. For instance, Illinois. You don't just run up to Illinois and pick somebody up and come back with them. Now, there are ways to go about it, but if you just run up there, put somebody in handcuffs, put them in your car, bring them back here, guess what? You're going to jail for kidnapping. There's processes to be followed. In most states, the licensing process is not difficult, but it can be costly. In Mississippi, for instance, just to be a bounty hunter, even if you don't want to do anything else, if you don't want to write bonds, if you don't want to get people in and out of jail, it don't matter. You still have to go through the same licensing requirements that I did as a professional agent, or that a soliciting agent, somebody that writes people out of jail, same thing that they go through. Here it's a 40-hour class. It costs $1,400 for the class, and you got to have somebody to sponsor you, like me, or somebody that owns a bail bond company. They've got to be willing to put their signature on your license saying that you work for them. All right, and every bonding company that you do pickups for, you're going to have that professional agent's name on your bail enforcement license. So you got $1,400 for the class, give or take. You got $50 for every license that you have to get, and then you got your cost of your phones, and if you do a website and things like that. So there are some overhead costs involved in being a bounty hunter, and you're not always guaranteed to get the work. You know, a lot of your bonding companies don't want to mess with fresh, first-time agents that just woke up one morning and decided that they were going to be a bounty hunter. Most bonding companies want to know that you've been in the business, that you know what you're looking for, that you know what you're looking at when you look at a document. When you look at a court document, you know, you have to know that that person is wanted, what they're wanted for, where they're wanted out of, or if they're not wanted. You got to be thorough. You know, just because you're holding a warrant in your hand doesn't mean it's valid. I've, on more than one occasion, gone to somebody's house, put them in handcuffs, started to put them in the car, and they've produced paperwork showing that they've already disposed of the warrant. They went down to the court as soon as they found out about it, paid their fine, and they were done. Now, had I gone any further with that, I'm looking at some civil and legal action against me, and possibly criminal action against me. So now you got to be more thorough. You call the court, verify the warrant. You call the police department, verify the warrant, depending on the situation. So it's not just a matter of, I'm gonna be a bounty hunter, I'm gonna run out, get me a bunch of paperwork from a bunch of bonding companies, and I'm gonna go make a ton of money. Because one, you can wind up in jail, sued, or dead. Just another quick example. One time, me and a couple of my agents got a tip. Here's the street, this is what the house looks like, this is the kind of car that's in the driveway. So we go to the house that we got the tip on, we knock on the door, and the guy comes to the door with a 12 gauge pump, holds it to one of my agents, and starts flipping out. Well, you think, oh wow, he had a gun, we could shoot him, right? Wrong. After he called 911 and the police got there and the guy finally calmed down a little bit, he didn't calm down much, but he calmed down enough to figure out that we were at the wrong house. The guy didn't even know the guy that we were talking about. So we called our informant back. Informant says, yeah, the house that I was trying to describe is 2 doors down, my bad. It's this house, not that one. So we were at the right house that was described to us, but we weren't at the house that our guy was at. So say I would have felt like I needed to defend myself and I would have shot that guy, I'd be in prison for murder right now. So that's what I'm saying. You got to use your head. You can't just go out there storming people's houses, violating their rights, violating their privacy and their peace of mind just because it's exciting. You really got to be on your A game. You really got to know what you're doing. If you're interested in a business, go hook up with a bonding company. Work with them for a little while. Work with some guys that have been in the bounty hunting business for years. See how they do things. See if it's worth it to you. See if the money is what you thought it would be. Most of the time, I guarantee you it's not. But it can be fun, but 90% of the business is you're getting lied to. You spend most of the time sitting in a truck or on the phone or watching a place. It's probably 95% boredom and 5% fun. And the 5% fun is every now and then. So think about that. If you have any questions, you can go to my website, usbailjumpers.com, send me an email, post a question on here, or go to the US Bail Jumpers webpage. Thank you. Talk to you later.